The first time I realized my car was gone, it wasn't because the driveway was empty. It was because I got a text from a toll road number I didn't recognize. Unpaid toll. Vehicle plate, REE7. My plate. My stomach tightened as I pulled up the photo. Same SUV. Same little dent on the rear bumper from the day I clipped a shopping cart corral. Except the driver wasn't me. I didn't call the number back. I didn't start a group chat. I did the thing you do when your life starts sliding sideways. I went straight to the only place that doesn't care about family stories. Records. The car was complicated on paper in a way that had made sense years ago, and now made me feel stupid. I'd paid every monthly payment myself, but the title was still in my dad's name. He'd co-signed when I was rebuilding my credit, and we'd always said we'd switch it the moment the loan was done. It was done. And the only thing not done was the paperwork, and my sister, Bianca, knew it. I drove to Bianca's place without calling, parked across the street, stared at her driveway, and there it was, like a trophy. My SUV, washed and shining, backed in like it belonged there. I walked up, knocked once, and she opened the door wearing that same calm smile she uses when she thinks she's already won. "Oh," she said, "you found it." "Why is my car here?" I asked. Bianca shrugged. Because Dad gifted it to me." She said it like she was telling me he'd gifted her a sweater. "He wanted me to have it," she added, and she actually smirked, like my reaction was entertainment. I could have yelled. I didn't, because yelling never beats paperwork. "I'm calling Dad," I said. Bianca leaned against the doorframe. "Go ahead." So I did. Dad answered on the second ring, voice thin and tired. Rehab had been taking it out of him since his surgery. "Hey, honey," he said. "Did you gift Bianca my car?" I asked. There was a pause. A real one. "What?" he said. "No." Bianca heard it through the speaker and rolled her eyes like he was being dramatic. "Dad," I said carefully, "she's saying you signed it over." "I didn't sign anything," he said, sharper now. "I told her not to touch it. That car is yours." Bianca laughed once. Short. Mean. "He's confused," she said, loud enough for him to hear. "He forgets things." Dad's voice went cold. "Don't do that." Bianca ended the call by tapping my screen like she was swatting a fly. Then she walked to her kitchen counter and grabbed a folder. She waved it once in the air like she was conducting an orchestra. "Here," she said, "DMV transfer forms. Gift, signed, filed." She slid the top sheet across the counter. I didn't even have to read it all to feel my pulse jump. My dad's name, my dad's signature, and a date from last week. Dad had been in rehab last week. Mel Bianca watched my face and smiled wider. "Pay up," she said, sweet as poison. "Or take it to court. Either way, it's already done." That phrase again, already done. I didn't answer her. I took a photo of the paperwork, walked out, and sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel, breathing through my nose like I was trying not to snap something in half. Then I called one person who doesn't fall for family charm, my attorney. Mara Collins answered with a voice that always sounded like she'd been in the middle of something more important. "Tell me the short version," she said. "My sister says Dad gifted her my car," I said. "She has paperwork." Mara didn't gasp. "Is the title in your dad's name?" she asked. "Yes." "Is he alive?" she asked. "Yes." "Is he competent?" she asked. "Yes, he's in rehab. Tired but competent." "Okay," she said. "Then your sister didn't inherit anything. She's claiming a transfer. That means we go to the DMV record and we go to court fast." I swallowed. "Can DMV tell me who filed it?" "They may not hand you details over the counter," Mara said, "but they keep transaction history. And if she filed something false, that's title fraud." She didn't say it like a dramatic accusation. She said it like a category of problem. "Go to the DMV office," she told me. "Ask for a supervisor. Ask for the transfer record and the supporting documents. And ask what ID was used. Then call me from the parking lot." So I did. The DMV waiting area was exactly what you'd expect. Plastic chairs, fluorescent lights, people staring at ticket numbers like it was life or death. When my number was called, I kept it simple. "I need the title transfer record for my dad's vehicle," I told the clerk. "A transfer was filed last week, and we believe it was unauthorized." The clerk's face didn't change much, but her tone got more careful. "Do you have power of attorney?" she asked. No," I said. "But my dad is alive, and he denies signing anything." The clerk hesitated, then said, "I'll get a supervisor." A few minutes later, a supervisor came out. Mr. Ibarra. No smile, calm eyes, the posture of someone who'd seen every flavor of scam. He asked for the VIN. I gave it. He typed for a long time without talking, then looked up. "There was a title transfer processed," he said. "Gift transfer." My mouth went dry. "Who submitted it?" He held up a hand. "So I can't give you personal details without proper authorization." "I'm not asking for gossip," I said. "I'm asking how to challenge it." That he understood. He slid a form across the counter. "You can file a fraud report and request a certified transaction history," he said. "If your dad is the titled owner, he can request it directly. If he can't come in, he can sign an authorization." I nodded. "What about the ID used?" Mr. Ibarra paused. "Or the transaction record includes the presenter's ID." Presenter. My stomach tightened. "So the person who filed it had to show ID?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Acceptable photo ID is required for title transfers." He didn't say it like a lecture, more like a warning. "If the ID doesn't match the person who should have been there," he added, "it matters." I stepped out into the sun and called Mara. "Okay," I said. "DMV confirms it was processed as a gift. When they have a transaction record that includes the presenter's ID." Mara's voice sharpened. "Good, now we move." She told me exactly what we'd file: an emergency petition to stop any sale or further transfer, and a request for a court order compelling the DMV to produce the certified transfer packet, record-scanned ID, and supporting documents. "Judges don't like family fights," Mara said, "but they do like clean questions." That night, I sat with my dad on a video call while Mara walked him through signing a simple authorization. He looked exhausted and furious. "I didn't give her that car," he said. "She's trying to steal it." Mara filed first thing in the morning. By afternoon, we had a hearing date. And when we stepped into court, Bianca walked in like she was going to pick up a prize. She waved her gift paperwork like it ended the conversation. Mara didn't argue with her. She didn't trade insults. And she just looked at the judge and said, "Your Honor, we're not here to debate what someone claims was said. We're here to see what the DMV recorded and whose ID was used to file it." The judge leaned forward. "Bring me the DMV transfer record," he said. Then he looked straight at Bianca. "And if you're telling the truth," he added, "that record will match your story." Bianca smiled like she loved the sound of that. Mara didn't smile back, because she already knew where this was headed. And the judge didn't let Bianca's folder control the room. He leaned forward, eyes on my attorney. "Counsel," he said, "you asked for the DMV transfer record. I want it." Mara stood up, calm, prepared. "Your Honor, the DMV sent a custodian with the certified transfer packet," she said. A woman in a gray suit stepped to the witness stand and raised her right hand. She didn't look like someone who cared about family drama. She looked like someone who cared about checkboxes and audit trails. "Name for the record?" the judge asked. "Lena Park," she said. "DMV Compliance Liaison." The judge nodded once. "Ms. Park, is the transfer packet in your custody?" "Yes, Your Honor." She set a sealed envelope on the stand. "Certified copy. Chain of custody noted." Bianca's attorney smiled like he'd been waiting for this. "Your Honor," he began, "we can save time. This was a lawful gift transfer. The father signed—" The judge cut him off with a hand. "We'll see," he said. "Ms. Park, He explained the basic requirement. When a title transfer is filed, what identification is required? Ms. Park kept it simple. Photo identification is required for the person submitting the transaction, she said. Depending on the transaction type, supporting documents may be required, and we retain copies or images of what was presented. Bianca leaned back in her chair, confident again. She looked at me and mouthed, "Told you." Mara didn't look at her. "Miss Park," Mara said, "in this packet, do you have the transfer form and the ID image used to submit it?" "Yes," Ms. Park answered. Mara nodded to the judge. "Your Honor, we request the court display the ID image associated with this transaction." Bianca's attorney stood up fast. "Objection! Privacy!" The judge didn't even glance at him. "Overruled," he said. "This is the core dispute." Ms. Park plugged a drive into the court display system. A moment later, the monitor facing the bench lit up with a document scan. Title transfer application, a gift box checked, and a signature block. Bianca's lawyer's smile returned. Ms. Park scrolled down to the attachment pane, clicked once, and the screen changed. A driver's license image filled the monitor. It had my dad's name, it had a birth date, it had an ID number, and the photo was my sister. Not kinda similar, not could be a cousin. Bianca, clear as day. Same eyes, same mouth. In same smug tilt to the head, frozen into an official-looking rectangle. The judge stared at the screen for a long beat, like his brain needed a second to accept what his eyes were telling him. Then he looked down at Bianca, then back at the screen, then down at Bianca again. "Ms. Bennett," he said quietly, "stand up." Bianca didn't move at first. She blinked fast like she was trying to reboot. Her attorney touched her elbow. "Stand." She stood. The judge pointed at the monitor. "Is that you?" he asked. Bianca's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "That's—" she started. Her attorney jumped in, voice tight. "Your Honor, images can be— there are errors in scanning." "No," the judge said, flat. "That is not a scanning error. That is a person's face." He turned to Ms. Park. "Ms. Park," he said, "confirm. This image is what was submitted as identification for this transaction." "Yes, Your Honor," she answered, calm as granite. "It is the ID image on file associated with the title Transfer Submission." Mara didn't pile on. She just asked the next clean question. "Ms. Park," she said, "if the donor was the father and the recipient was Ms. Bennett, why is the donor ID showing the recipient's face?" Ms. Park didn't speculate. "I can't speak to intent," she said. "I can speak to what the file contains." The judge's voice stayed controlled, but there was a sharp edge now. "Ms. Bennett," he said, you told this court your father gifted you the vehicle." Bianca swallowed. "Yes," she said, smaller now. "You also filed a DMV transaction using an ID with your father's name and your face," the judge continued. Bianca's attorney tried to step in again. "Your Honor, my client—" The judge held up a hand. "Counsel," he said, "sit down. You are not talking your way around a photograph." The attorney sat. Bianca's chin lifted, desperate to reclaim dominance. "My father wanted me to have it," she said. "He told me. He was tired of her." The judge interrupted, voice cold. "I don't care what he told you," he said. "I care what you filed." Mara stepped forward. "Your Honor," she said, "we also have documentation of my client's father's location on the date this transfer was submitted." She handed the clerk a single page, rehab facility sign-in summary with date and time, plus a letter from the facility administrator confirming he was admitted and not present at any DMV office. The judge read it once and nodded. "So he wasn't there," he said. Bianca's eyes flicked toward her lawyer again, like she wanted an escape hatch. Mara kept the tone plain, human, easy to follow. "Your Honor, she didn't just take a car," Mara said. "She took the state's process and tried to wear someone else's identity to do it." The judge looked back at Ms. Park. "Missy—" "To Park," he asked. Does the DMV packet show whether this transaction was submitted in person or online? In person, Ms. Park said. Branch submission, counter intake. And do you have the branch code and employee intake stamp? The judge asked. Yes, she replied, flipping to a page with an audit line and pointing to it. Mara didn't waste the moment. Your Honor, we request an immediate hold on the title record, she said, and an order requiring the vehicle to be returned to my client pending investigation. Bianca snapped, voice rising. You can't just take it from me. The judge's head turned sharply. Stop, he said. Not loud, just final. He looked at Bianca like she'd become something simple in his mind. Here is what's going to happen, he said. 1. The DMV is ordered to place a fraud flag on this title record today. 2. Ms. Bennett will not sell, transfer, encumber, or register this vehicle pending further order. 3. Ms. Bennett will surrender the keys by close of business today to a neutral third party designated by this court. Bianca's face tightened. Neutral third party? The judge nodded. Yes, because I'm not rewarding a dispute with possession. He turned to Mara. Counsel, he said, file a replevin request if needed, but I'm issuing a temporary order now. Then he looked at Ms. Park again. Ms. Park, he said, I want the full transfer packet preserved, original scans, audit trail, any intake notes, anything attached. Yes, Your Honor, she said. Bianca's attorney stood one last time, voice trembling with urgency. Your Honor, this is becoming criminal. The judge cut him off. It became criminal when someone filed an ID with the wrong face, he said. I'm referring this to the appropriate investigators. Bianca went pale. And just when I thought that was the end of it, Ms. Park flipped one more page in the packet and hesitated, only for a second. The judge caught it immediately. Ms. Park, he said, what is it? She looked up. There's an additional note, she said, an attempted follow-up transaction. Mara's head lifted. Attempted what? Ms. Park read from the audit line. Request to change the mailing address for the title record. Submitted the next morning, she said. The judge's eyes narrowed. To what address? He asked. Ms. Park read it out. It was Bianca's address, and the request was flagged and stopped. The judge looked at Bianca again, voice low. So, even after you won the car, he said, you tried to lock the paperwork to your mailbox. Bianca's lips parted. No sound. The judge leaned back, then forward. Bailiff, he said, I want Ms. All Bennett's identification information recorded, and I want her advised not to destroy any devices or documents related to this. Then he looked at Bianca and said the sentence that made the air feel heavy. Ms. Bennett, we're not done. When the judge said, we're not done, he didn't mean someday. He meant today. He turned to the bailiff. Counsel will meet with the clerk and get the signed temporary order. Ms. Bennett, you will surrender the keys by close of business. Bianca opened her mouth like she was about to turn this into a speech. The judge shut that down with one look. No commentary, he said, just compliance. Mara's hand touched my elbow, light, steady. We move before she gets creative, she murmured. Outside the courtroom, Bianca tried to recover her swagger in the hallway, like the monitor hadn't just shown her face attached to my dad's name. And this is a misunderstanding, she told her attorney, loud enough for us to hear. They're twisting it. Mara didn't bite. She just walked me straight to the clerk's counter, got the judge's order stamped, and asked for an extra certified copy without drama. The clerk slid the papers back. Order signed. Stamped. Effective immediately. That stamp is what stops the maybe from leaking into your life. Then Mara made one quick call and put it on speaker for me. "Da civil enforcement," a man answered. Mara's voice stayed calm. "I have a signed court order requiring surrender of a vehicle pending fraud investigation. I need a deputy to assist with possession if the respondent refuses. There was a pause. Then, we can dispatch a civil deputy this afternoon. Address? Mara gave Bianca's address. I felt my pulse jump, because Bianca didn't know that call had just happened. She still thought she could stall with attitude. While we waited in the lobby, Miss Park from DMV Compliance stepped out, holding her envelope like a file, not a weapon. Mara spoke to her quietly, then asked one simple question. Miss Park, does your audit trail show which branch and counter processed the transfer? Yes, she said. Branch code is in the record. And you're preserving the original scans and intake notes? Mara asked. Ms. Park nodded. Already flagged. The title record is on fraud hold. That mattered more than any insult. On a fraud hold means Bianca couldn't quietly flip the title again while everyone was tired. Bianca walked past us on her way out, chin lifted, trying to look bored. She stopped just long enough to throw one line over her shoulder. You're wasting time, she said. It's my car. Mara didn't answer. She just watched Bianca walk away, then turned to me. She's going to move it, she said. And right on cue, my phone buzzed again. Another toll notice. Same plate. New timestamp. New location. Down, my throat went tight. She's driving it, I said. Mara's eyes narrowed. Good, that's a breadcrumb. An hour later, a civil deputy met us in the courthouse parking lot. Not SWAT, not drama, just a uniform, a clipboard, and a calm face. Deputy Rains, he said, showing his badge. You're the petitioner? Mara handed him the order. He read it once, then nodded. All right, he said. We go to the address. If the vehicle is there, we secure it. If it's not there, he didn't finish, but I heard it anyway. Then we hunt. When we pulled up to Bianca's driveway, my stomach sank. Empty. No SUV. No shiny trophy. Bianca's garage door was shut. No lights, no movement. Deputy Rains didn't sigh, didn't get theatrical. He simply looked at Mara. Do you have any proof it's being driven? He asked. I held up my phone with the toll notice. He nodded. That helps. Mara called the toll authority's customer line. Again, no yelling, no begging. Just facts. Within minutes, she had a human on the line who could confirm the last toll camera read. Plate was captured at 3:41 p.m. near Ridgeway Parkway, the rep said. Ridgeway Parkway wasn't near Bianca's house. It was where the used car dealerships were. My stomach turned. Mara looked at Deputy Rains. He didn't need a speech. We go, he said. Ridgeway Motors sat behind a chain-link fence with bright flags and shiny cars lined up like candy. We drove slowly past the front row. Then I saw it. My SUV. Same dent, same roof rack, parked beside a small office building. But it wasn't wearing my plate anymore. A temporary dealer tag sat in the window. Deputy Rains parked, stepped out, and walked into the office like this was routine. The manager, middle-aged polo shirt, nervous eyes, came out when he saw the uniform. Can I help you? He asked. Deputy Rains kept his voice calm. I'm here regarding that SUV outside. We have a court order and a fraud hold on the title record. The manager blinked. That vehicle was brought in today. By who? Mara asked. The manager hesitated like he knew the answer would ruin his afternoon. A woman, he said. Said it was a gift from her dad. Wanted to sell it fast. Deputy Rains held out a hand. Paperwork. The manager disappeared into the back and returned with a folder. He set it on the counter and pointed at a page like he wanted distance from it. She's signed as seller, he said. We scanned her ID. My throat tightened. Mara's eyes sharpened. Show us. The manager turned a monitor toward us. A scanned license popped up. My dad's name at the top. Bianca's face in the photo. Same trick. Same audacity. Deputy Rains didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Where is she? He asked. The manager swallowed. She left. Said she'd be back for payment. Deputy Rains nodded once. Not happening, he said. He stepped outside, checked the VIN through his system, then walked back in. "This vehicle is under court order," he told the manager. "It is not to be sold. It is not to be moved." The manager's hands lifted. "We won't touch it." Deputy Rains looked at Mara. "Do you want it towed to a secure lot?" Mara didn't hesitate. "Yes." That was the mini payoff I didn't even realize I was holding my breath for, because she can't sell it is nice, but it's physically secured is peace. And while we waited for the tow truck, the manager slid one more sheet forward, hesitant. "There's something else," he said. Mara's eyes flicked to it. It was a printed request Bianca had handed them, like a checklist. "Need duplicate title ASAP. DMV appointment tomorrow." I felt my stomach drop again, because Bianca wasn't just trying to sell it. She was trying to replace the paper trail before anyone could stop her. Deputy Rains took the sheet and nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said, and then he looked at me, voice steady. "We have your car secured," he said. "Now we go after the person who tried to flip it." And as the tow truck backed up and lifted my SUV like it weighed nothing, my phone buzzed one more time. A text from Bianca. "You can't stop this. I already have a DMV appointment tomorrow." Mara didn't react emotionally. She just held out her hand. "Save it," she said. "That's intent." Deputy Rains looked at the message, and then at the dealer's scanned ID on the screen. He said one quiet sentence that made my pulse spike again. Tomorrow's appointment just became our appointment. The next morning, we didn't wait and see. We showed up before the DMV doors even opened. Mara met me in the parking lot with two things: the judge's stamped order and the DMV compliance contact, all ready on speaker. "Ms. Park?" Mara said. "It's Collins. She texted she has an appointment today for a duplicate title." A calm voice answered, clipped and awake. "I saw the fraud hold," Ms. Park said. "We flagged the title record yesterday. If she tries anything in person, the system will stop it." "That's not enough," Mara replied. "We need documentation that she attempted it after a court order." A pause. Then, "Understood. I'll be on site." Deputy Rains parked beside us and stepped out with his clipboard, work looking like a man who'd rather drink his coffee in peace, but was here to finish a job. "You're telling me she's coming to the DMV?" he asked. Mara held up the printed text Bianca sent. He read it once, then nodded. "Okay," he said. "We keep it calm. We let her walk into the record." Inside, the DMV looked exactly like it always does. Rows of plastic chairs, ticket numbers, tired faces, fluorescent lights that make everyone look guilty. We didn't march in like a movie. When we took a seat off to the side, near the wall, like we were just another group waiting our turn. A few minutes later, Ms. Park arrived carrying a thin folder and that same steady, no-nonsense posture. She greeted Mara with a nod, then leaned in. "Here's what will happen," she said quietly. "When she checks in, the system will show the fraud hold and the court order. The clerk will be instructed not to process and to call a supervisor." "And you can preserve the ID scan?" Mara asked. "Ms. C." Park nodded. "We retain images attached to the transaction attempt, including what they present." Deputy Rains shifted his weight. "And if she tries to leave?" Ms. Park didn't answer that one. She didn't need to. That was his lane. At 9:08 a.m., the front doors opened. At 9:11, Bianca walked in. She wasn't dressed like someone running a scam. She was dressed like someone with errands. Hair smooth, simple blazer, folder tucked under her arm like she'd done this 100 times. When she scanned the room once, spotted me, and her mouth twisted into a quick smile that said, "You can't keep up." Then she walked to the check-in kiosk and typed. I didn't move. Mara didn't move. We just watched. Bianca took a ticket and sat down, legs crossed, folder in her lap like a prize. Deputy Rains leaned closer to Mara. "She thinks this is still paperwork," he murmured. Mara's eyes stayed on Bianca. "She's about to find out paperwork keeps receipts." Bianca's number flashed, and she stood quickly and walked to a counter. The clerk, young, tired, polite, looked up. "Appointment?" he asked. "Yes," Bianca said, voice bright. "Duplicate title. Gift transfer is already filed," the clerk typed. You could tell when something changed because his face went blank in that professional way people get when a screen says something they're not allowed to ignore. He didn't look at Bianca. He looked at his monitor. Then he cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said, careful, "I need to see your ID." Bianca smiled like she'd been waiting for that. She slid an ID across the counter. The clerk scanned it. His eyes flicked to the screen, then back to the ID, then back to the screen again, and his fingers stopped moving. Bianca's smile faltered. "What is it?" The clerk swallowed. "I need my supervisor," he said. Bianca's posture tightened. "Why?" The clerk kept his tone neutral, but his eyes were telling the truth. "There's a hold," he said. "A fraud hold." Bianca laughed once, too loud for a DMV. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "It's my car." The clerk stood up and walked to the back without answering. Ms. Park rose from our seats, not rushing, not dramatic, just walking like someone who belonged behind that counter. Deputy Raines followed at an angle, staying calm. The supervisor arrived. Older woman, badge on a lanyard, no patience in her face. She took one look at the screen, then at Bianca. "Ma'am," she said, This title record is under a court order and fraud investigation. We cannot process anything today." Bianca's voice sharpened instantly. "Court order? From who?" Ms. Park stepped up beside the supervisor. "DMV compliance," she said, flashing her badge. "This record is flagged." Bianca's eyes flicked to Ms. Park, then to me, then back to the counter. "What flagged?" Bianca snapped. "She's lying. My dad gifted it to me." The supervisor didn't argue. She pointed at the monitor. "No, this says the donor is not present and the identification used on the prior transfer does not match," she said. "It also says the vehicle is subject to a court order." Bianca's face flushed. "That's a mistake." Ms. Park held out her hand calmly. "Ma'am," she said, "may I see the ID you presented?" Bianca hesitated for half a second. Then she pushed it across like she was offended anyone would question her. "Ms." Park glanced at it once and her expression didn't change because she'd already seen this kind of thing. "Supervisor," she said quietly. "This is not valid for the titled owner." Bianca leaned in, voice low and mean. "You people are making this up." Deputy Raines stepped closer, still calm. "Ma'am," he said, "you were ordered yesterday not to alter or transfer this title." Bianca's head snapped toward him. "And who are you?" she demanded. He showed his badge without flair. "A civil deputy," he said. "Court order enforcement." Bianca's eyes widened, just slightly, then hardened. "This is harassment," she said. "I'm leaving." She reached for her folder. The supervisor put a hand out, not touching her, just stopping the space. "Ma'am," she said, "we are keeping a copy of the documents you submitted as part of this attempted transaction." Bianca jerked the folder back. "No, you're not." And that was the moment Deputy Raines' tone changed. Not angry, just official. "Don't," he said. Bianca froze. Ms. Park looked at the supervisor and nodded once. "Preserve the scan," she said. "Log the attempt. Timestamp it." The supervisor turned to the clerk. "Print the transaction attempt summary," she ordered. The printer behind the counter started humming. Bianca stared at it like it was stealing from her. "Give me my ID back," she snapped. The supervisor held it up. "You'll get it back," she said. "After we document what was presented in connection with an attempted transaction under a fraud hold." Bianca's eyes darted to the exit, to her phone, to me. And I could see it. She was deciding whether to bolt. Deputy Raines was already ahead of her. "Ma'am," he said, voice steady, "stay where you are." Bianca lifted her chin like she was too important to be told anything. "I have rights," she said, "You do," he replied. "Wherein you also have a court order." The supervisor tore the printed sheet from the printer and read the top line aloud without meaning to, just a reflex. Attempted duplicate title request. Blocked by fraud hold. Presenter ID captured. She looked up at Ms. Park. Ms. Park nodded. That's what we needed. Mara finally stood and stepped forward, not to argue, not to lecture. She simply held up the judge's order in her hand like a key. "Now, Your Honor's order prohibited any new title actions," she said to the supervisor. "Please attach this to the log." The supervisor took it, nodded, and stapled it to the printout. Bianca's face went pale in a new way, not fear of me, but fear of the timeline, because now there was proof she tried again after being told to stop. Deputy Raines spoke into his radio, low. "Dispatch," he said. "When I need a unit for a fraud report follow-up at the DMV." Bianca heard that, and her voice cracked just slightly. "You're kidding," she whispered. Deputy Raines didn't look at her. He looked at Mara. "Now," he said quietly, "we show the judge she ignored the order." Then, behind the counter, the clerk called out to the supervisor, eyes wide. "Ma'am, the ID she presented." The supervisor leaned in. The clerk pointed at the screen and said, "D barely audible. It's the same face from yesterday's transfer packet, but the name at the top is the dad again." Ms. Park's jaw tightened for the first time, because it wasn't one bad decision anymore. It was repetition, a pattern. And Bianca, standing in the middle of the DMV, realized she'd walked into a trap made of her own paperwork. The front doors opened again. A uniformed officer stepped inside and headed straight toward the counter. Bianca turned her head, saw him coming, and whispered through her teeth, "This is not happening." Deputy Raines didn't raise his voice. He just said the line that made the whole room feel quiet around us. "Ma'am, it is." The uniformed officer didn't run up like a movie. He walked in calm, looked at Deputy Raines, then at Ms. Park's badge, then at Bianca standing at the counter with her folder held tight, like it could protect her. "What's going on?" he asked. Deputy Raines kept it simple. "Court order," he said, "fraud hold. And she attempted a duplicate title request after being ordered not to. DMV has the printout and the ID scan." The officer nodded once, then looked at Bianca. "Ma'am," he said, "step away from the counter." Bianca's voice jumped up an octave. "This is insane," she snapped. "That car was gifted to me." The supervisor didn't argue. She just slid the transaction attempt summary across the counter to Ms. Park. Ms. Park read the top line and circled the timestamp with a pen. "No attempt recorded," she said quietly. "Presenter ID captured." Mara stepped forward and placed the judge's order on the counter where the officer could see it. Bianca saw it too, and her expression changed for a second, like she finally understood she wasn't fighting me anymore. She was fighting a paper trail. The officer read the order, then looked back at her. "Ma'am," he said, "did you submit a title transaction yesterday using identification with your father's name?" Bianca opened her mouth. Her lawyer wasn't here to save her, and the DMV clerk behind the counter wasn't looking at her like a person anymore. He was looking at her like a compliance problem. Bianca tried to play the only card she had left. "My dad told me to handle it," she said. "He didn't want her to have it." Deputy Raines didn't react to the family stuff. He pointed at the printout. "This says you tried again today," he said, "after the court said stop." Bianca snapped, "Because she's lying." Ms. Park looked up and spoke, calm and clean. "Ma'am," she said, "this is not a debate. Your photo is tied to your father's name in the submission record. Twice." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Twice?" he asked. Ms. Park nodded. "Yesterday's transfer packet and today's attempted duplicate title request." The officer took a breath and looked at Bianca again. "Do you have your father here?" he asked. Bianca's jaw tightened. "No, he's recovering." "So he's not present," the officer said. Bianca lifted her chin. He doesn't need to be. The officer held her gaze. For a legitimate gift transfer, he does, he said, or you need proper authorization that matches the record. Bianca's eyes darted toward the exit. Deputy Raines shifted subtly. No threats, just positioning. The officer's tone stayed calm. Ma'am, he said, when I'm going to take a report, you are not free to leave until I confirm your identification and document this attempted transaction. Bianca's voice went sharp. You can't hold me. I can, he replied, flat, because this is an active fraud investigation and there's a court order involved. Bianca's face went pale, not from guilt, from realizing this wasn't something she could talk her way out of. That afternoon we were back in court, not because we wanted to be, because Bianca had forced the next step with her own stubbornness. The judge looked at the new DMV printout. He didn't look surprised. He looked disappointed in that cold, professional way that's worse than anger. Ms. Bennett, he said, you were ordered yesterday not to take any action on this title. Bianca tried to speak. He held up his hand. Stop, he said. Waiwar, I have a time-stamped record from the DMV that you attempted a duplicate title request today anyway. He glanced down at the packet again. And you presented identification with your father's name, he added, while your photograph appeared on the record. Bianca's lawyer finally arrived, late, breathless, and already looking defeated. Your Honor, he began. My client didn't understand. The judge cut him off. She understood enough to make an appointment, he said. And she understood enough to bring the same false ID again. Then he leaned forward. This court issues orders to prevent harm, he said. You ignored it. He turned to Mara. Counsel, he asked, is the vehicle secured? Mara answered with one clean sentence. Yes, Your Honor. It was towed to a secure lot under deputy supervision. The dealer provided copies of the documents she submitted. The judge nodded. Then he delivered the part Bianca hadn't expected. Here are my findings and orders, he said, clear and direct. The temporary order is extended. The vehicle remains secured pending resolution. The DMV fraud hold remains in place, and no transactions will be processed without a signed court directive. Ms. Bennett is ordered to have no contact with the titled owner regarding this vehicle, except through counsel. Attorney's fees and costs for today's emergency appearance are awarded to the petitioner. Bianca's head snapped up. Fees? The judge looked at her. Yes, he said. Fees. Your decisions created today's hearing. Then he turned to Ms. Park. Ms. Park, he said, provide the transfer packet, the attempted duplicate title packet, and the presenter ID images to the investigating agency. Ms. Park nodded. Already prepared, Your Honor. The judge looked back at Bianca. And because this involves identity misuse and falsified filings, he continued, I am referring this matter for criminal review. Bianca's shoulders tightened. Her mouth opened. No sound. The judge didn't gloat. He just closed the door. Ms. Bennett, he said, you do not get to gift yourself property by impersonation. He signed the order on the bench. Pen scratch. Stamp request. Done. 2 weeks later, the consequences stopped being theoretical. Mara called me on a Tuesday morning and said, I have 3 updates. She didn't sound excited. She sounded satisfied. First, she said, the DMV issued a formal fraud determination and locked the title record. No duplicate title, no transfers. It's flagged permanently unless a court clears it. Second, she continued, the dealer gave a sworn statement and provided the scanned ID and intake documents. That's in the investigator's file. Third, she said, and her voice lowered slightly, or your sister was charged with filing a false instrument and identity fraud related to the title submission. She gave me the case number and the court date. Not as a threat, as a fact. That same week, my dad signed a clean title correction with Mara present. We did it properly. No shortcuts, no family favors, just the right form, the right ID, the right process. When the new title arrived in the mail with my name on it, I stared at it longer than I expected. And not because it was a piece of paper, because it was the end of a lie. Bianca texted me one time after that. "You didn't have to ruin me." I didn't answer. I forwarded it to Mara and saved it, because I'd learned something important. If someone will wear your father's name like a mask, they'll also rewrite the story afterward. And I wasn't going to give her that chance. I didn't want revenge. I wanted my life back. And this time, the record said the truth.